welcome to this new video for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be reviewing a story called The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. It was written by Imogen Harms Gowar, and it was published in 2018. I've never heard of this book up until April of 2019 because I don't really like to read new releases. I'm more into classics. But after I discovered it on an online post of a fellow bibliophile friend on Instagram, I quickly looked it up because the title and the cover intrigued me. I mean, I've always been fascinated with mermaids, so yeah, I looked it up, and I liked that the first pages were sort of presented the way books were back in the 18th century, in sort of volumes. When I read the plot, I was hooked, and after reading the first few pages, I knew I had to read this book, so I instantly bought it, and I read it in less than a week. The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock is a story set in and around London in the late 18th century. It has two protagonists, Mr. Hancock and Angelica Neal. The former is a merchant who happens to come in possession of the corpse of a mermaid, and when he begins to show it around, he starts to move in the highest circles of society. It is there that he meets Angelica Neal, one of the most popular courtesans ever, and Mr. Hancock is quite smitten with this vivacious, beautiful woman. They end up meeting more than once for different reasons, but we also get to know them as individuals, and all of these things happen under the power mermaids have over mankind. This makes the book have some elements of magical realism, but these don't have that big of an appearance in the story as a whole. In the end, the book is funny, cute, and a bit dark at times, as it covers everything from cynical humor to themes of racism, orgies, prostitutions, the loss of children, and the grief that brings love, obsession, and the different roles for women back in this period of time, and the difficulties they had to endure because of their gender. I give The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock a 4 out of 5 stars review. Part of me wishes it could give it a 3.5, but in the end I'm okay with giving it a 4. In the end, I did enjoy it, and I couldn't put it down while I was reading it. And because I love spoilers, I usually prefer to watch an adaptation of a book before reading it, so I know how it ends. But here I didn't know how it was gonna end, and my only option was to read the final pages, and for some reason I didn't want to this time, so that kept me hooked and eager to read as fast as I could. But when I reached the end, I was left with a feeling a bit of unsatisfaction with the way everything was resolved. And looking back, I'm not that happy with some of the choices the author made regarding where he was gonna take her story. Sure, it's hers and she's free to do with it whatever she wants, so I can't really complain that I would have written it differently had it been my idea. And I mean, overall, it is a delightful, light, different kind of story book to the ones I usually read, so it kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. It is evident, though, that this is the author's first book because of the way the characters were developed, meaning that they weren't really developed that well at all, up to a point. Some secondary characters, well, their stories were left unfinished, or at least it felt to me that the author was building up all of this promising material for some of the characters and then she doesn't wrap up their stories. Also, as to the protagonist, Mr. Hancock, I did like him, but he felt sort of flat at times. Like, there wasn't really that much depth to him, or if there was, it wasn't really explored. And as to Angelica, I did like her, but she was just all over the place, and her character development didn't make sense, didn't feel believable to me, because she starts being presented as a specific sort of woman, and then she's suddenly behaving very unlogically in another way, and then that continues to happen, changing her more than once into other different types of women. And sure, she's human. Humans are not specifically one thing. I don't think that the author did a good way of presenting the way she reacted to situations, because she totally changed. She didn't behave like the initial way she's presented reacting to those situations. She just completely changed into other women. I mean, there is no real explanation as to why she changes from being clever to being silly to suddenly becoming mature and then quiet and then hopeful. I guess that we do get a reason why she's changing, but that's not enough for a reader to believe that that change is natural, that it's developing with logical reasonings. I could understand in a way the way she was changing towards the latter part of the book, but then again, when you see the way she ends the book to the way she started, she's completely different, and this isn't really because it was a good character development, I'm afraid. And I mean, at the start it was such a promising book, and I thought it was gonna go in all of these different directions that it ended up going. But one thing that I really do praise is the writing style. I'd never come across anything similar before. It was absolutely a thing of beauty. It's spellbinding, it's charming, it's whimsical, it's full of satire in a way. Towards the end, it wasn't as prominent, the beauty, but really, the author has a way with words. And she manages to put pictures into the head of the reader with ease. And I can't quite describe her writing style. It's magical, and it did remind me of William Makepeace Thackeray more than once. In Vanity Fair, A Novel Without a Hero, one of my favorite books ever. But yeah, getting back to the characters of this book, I did like the idea of Mr. Hancock and Angelica Neal because they were so different. And I like unlikely romances. And as to the main mermaid from the title, well, I love The Little Mermaid, and I actually like Disney's take on it more than I do the real story, even though that's really bittersweet and poetic. But that's my take on mermaids. That doesn't mean, though, that I'm not fascinated by other ways mermaids are portrayed. And the way that the author plays with mermaids in her book, it's quite fascinating because at first one of the mermaids is introduced as this corpse, this really ugly, dried, fierce-looking corpse that's all shriveled up. But then she also plays with the idea of mermaids being dangerous and alluring and releasing powers that hasten men to their doom. And I never really come across the concept that she portrays in the latter half of the book regarding mermaids. I don't want to spoil what that was about, though. But I will say that it has a message of how humans will sacrifice almost everything in order to get what they really want, even if they know that there's gonna be a big price to pay for it all. And yeah, mermaids here are shown to be not that good to have around, and yet they are just coveted and desired by men. Maybe because they released this obsessive power over humankind, which was quite scary of a concept. But yeah, anyways. For the moment, I believe that this is all I have to say about The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. Thank you so much for watching my review of it. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not, as well as what are your own thoughts on this story, because I would love to talk about it all with you. And in the description box below, you can find a link to the Goodreads page for the novel. Anyways, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you're in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.